Hey everyone, climbing video today, or at least me with GoPro footage of me going up a local climb. It's the Swansea Wheelers hill climb course, which is like half an hour ride away. Brilliant place for me to do these efforts that I did on Thursday, which was pre-time trial. I did a time trial after it in the evening and actually set a new 20-minute best power by 2 watts, or at least increased my FTP by 2 watts. So yeah, so we'll get into this video because I want to talk about a couple of things. And the title of this video is something like one of my favorite over FTP sessions. So I want to start by saying that, slightly off topic, but 90% of the cyclists I help out and follow do almost 100% of their training indoors. I know it's an effective way to train. However, if you can't hold, say, 250 or 300 watts in your interval, like bang on indoors, don't let that dishearten you. Because doing it outdoors is another story altogether. You know, truth be told, if you're training for an outside event and you can't hold bang on the number when you're training outside, that might get you. So whenever this happens in a session, don't worry about it. It's normal for power to fluctuate. You just got to do your best. And although I didn't intend on saying that in this video, it matters because of this session I did today. My power was a little bit all over the place on this climb. Okay, so pep talk over. Let's talk about this session. This session was planned as a 4x8 minute session above FTP, ideally around 105%. And you can pick the bones out of it. You could say 104%, you could say 109%, you could whatever. At the end of the day, it's over FTP. You can't go too hard, because you won't be able to hold the power for 8 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So you're almost self-regulating during the actual effort. It's a very strange way of putting it, but you're very in tune with your body when you're doing an effort like this, because it is over FTP, but it's not flat out. So it's quite hard to explain, really. But anyway, I'm using a hill for this session. Doing it on a flat road, which I could have done, would have made it actually easier to control my power. But, at the end of the day, I'm a climber. I'm trying to do stuff on the climb more, so just getting used to it doing on a climb is the first thing. So this interval length today was supposed to be 8 minutes, but it was dictated by the climb, and the recovery was dictated to by the descent. So the climb was actually 7.5 minutes. I must have had a tailwind or something, and the descent was 6 minutes, but it was 5 minutes to the bottom, and then by the time I faff and turn around, it's another 1 minute. So I love these natural workouts where you don't have to be oh, I'm going to have to keep going over the top and do 8 minutes. It is what it is. I could have a headwind there next week and it could be 8.5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? But more than likely, I would knock it on the head at 8 minutes. It goes without saying that if the climb was 15 minutes, or if the session you're doing is 15 minutes, I might do 2 by 15 minutes, but at 103% of FTP. And again, you're talking about percentages. And likewise, a 4-minute hill, I might do at 108% of FTP, the reps, that is. So keep in mind the recovery will be shorter with those 4-minute reps. But you see where I'm going with this. Basically, whatever climb you're using, if you're using climbs to do these workouts on natural workouts, then you can play around. So the shorter the effort, the harder it is. But again, it won't be too hard because effectively it'll start to turn into a different session. It won't be that slightly above threshold session that I planned out to do. So the goal of slightly over threshold workouts is to extend high power over greater durations, really, by riding only slightly above my current FTP, which is now 355 watts. I could become accustomed both physically and mentally at a workload just beyond my current sustainable reach. So I'm on the ragged edge with these. They're not pretty, but I'm right on that borderline of becoming too caught up in the effort. Breathing is hard, but not uncontrolled. It was the last effort that really got me in this workout because I'm already fatigued going into it. But what you're seeing on the screen now was the first actual rep. And I was pretty in control for the first rep. I was in the saddle for the whole thing. Lots of different changes in gradient. But the hardest thing is seeing your power numbers fluctuate just a little bit. So in my head, I just ignore them. If I see power numbers drop below, or get close to 350, then I just kind of like try to erase that and just press a little bit harder, and then it goes up to 380, 390 again. And what you got to get in your head is like, again, it's all about the average, or not the average, but like you're trying to get like a good effort out the whole way through. And, by going hard at the beginning and then you're not having that power in you on the flatter sections. When I say flatter sections, I mean where the gradient doesn't go flat, but it eases off slightly. If you're well under there, then you've not done it right. You want to try and keep it in a very tight range. So let's put this into context. This is my first week of my traditional build period, so week 1 of 4. And I've been staying away from this kind of structure, these hard efforts, ever since January the 1st, really, when I started riding properly after COVID and my big time off. But that's not to say that I haven't done any intensity, though. That's far from it. You've seen the amount of training I've been doing and the sessions that I've been doing as well. And it's important that I kind of keep my body used to what an empty effort is, going really hard and pushing yourself. Just not very regularly and not very often. But that's changing now, obviously. Yesterday I did a 4-hour, so the day before this session, I did a 4-hour steady ride with lots of climbing. With the majority of my time spent in zone 1 and zone 2. And the day before that, the Tuesday, was a hard sweet spot and sprint workout that I've never done before, including 2 hours endurance after it, and then a Zwift race in the evening that I came 10th in, or 9th provisionally. So one could say I'm a little tired for the session today. But my main training days are now Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays during this build period. If you want to know more about the build period, I'm basically going to be making a lot of videos now over the next 4 and 8 weeks. So you're never going to be too far away from the storyline. So the reason why I'm doing this session is kind of answered above by the points I've already touched on in this video. But basically I'm aiming for 2 peaks this year. One in early July and one in October. Hard to really tell you. Well, I'll tell you what the goals are for those peaks, but in a very simplistic way. The first peak is very much like an endurance peak, to put it in layman's terms. I'm basically trying to get as strong as possible around my FTP, almost building a base around my FTP, because later in the year I'm probably going to be focusing more on things well above that for the second peak, which is going to be like September, October time. I'll talk about my goals in more detail in a video soon, but needless to say, there's lots of benefits for myself as an endurance athlete to be able to work around my FTP for long sustained periods, particularly for what I'm aiming for, again, like I've said. But anyway, I digress. I want to push the boat out in this first build period to see what I'm capable of doing versus, well, my old self last year, because that was one of my strongest years on the bike last year. And because I treat most of my hard sessions like tests, it gives me a good direction goal for the next session, the next similar session, or the next day, if the next hard session is the next day, for example. So yeah. So lots of hard training, lots of questions already from people saying, how am I able to train so hard on like consecutive days? But actually it's not. If you really look at it, it probably just looks it from the outside. That's why I try to give you as much context as possible in case you get the wrong idea. And that's the last thing that I want, is for you to get the wrong idea and to injure yourself, or to, try and copy or whatever it is. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. And if you've got any questions, you know where to leave them in the comment section. Make sure to like the video and subscribe.